Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission Subcommittee on Subdivision Regulations to order. It is Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 7 o'clock. And we will begin with a roll call. Mr. Poplawski.
Dave Poplawski.
Mr. Hill.
Alvin Hill, present.
Ms. Salsi.
Jane Salsi, present.
Excellent.
John
And so
Lenke is coming in right now.
there he is. We'll let him connect. Good evening, Mr. Lenke.
Good evening.
Mr. Lenke is present as well. And so we will move on to the subdivision regulations review.
All right, you guys see those?
Yes.
All right, let me try to drag this participant box out of the way. Okay, picking up with, what is this? Article 4, I think that's section 3. Just gonna scroll up so I have my citations correct for Gloria for the minutes, and then we'll scroll back down. Article 4, section 2J, which is street design and construction. So it's picking up where we left off, and we'll continue as we have done thus far, which is just going from substantive comment to substantive comment. I'm going to leave out stuff that's mainly linguistic or formatting unless it seems like an actual decision needs to be made about it, and just expand the comments and read them as we go, and we'll get as far as we can get in the 2-hour period. Okay, so J, street design and construction. Marla, oh no, that's actually Marla carrying over one of the comments left in the last draft that I sent to her from Janet regarding road classifications, possible road chart, road classification of dwelling units, pavement widths or lots, private roads, public roads, residential. Oh, here comes Randy. Give him a second to come in. I think the formatting on this got messed up when it got carried over. She's trying to indicate the number of units, dwelling units, but it would really have to be units served by a given classification of road. So residential lane would be 1 to 25 units, 20 or 22 foot width. And then residential access roads, an access road being a higher classification of road than a residential lane, 26 to 100 units and 24 to 26 foot widths, and collector roads 100 or more units or commercial or industrial. So that's for reference. Here's the substance of Janet's note. If cul-de-sacs are permitted to serve up to 25 dwelling units or lots, then only residential lanes can be dead ends or cul-de-sac roads. Obviously, the commission will decide on the number of lots or dwelling units it thinks are appropriate, but the point of this type of categorization is to put a financial incentive on private road development. Categorizing roads by ADT, which is average daily traffic, is very appropriate. However, it may require traffic studies, so it could be more difficult to enforce and understand. I'm not sure that there is something that needs to be responded to there immediately. That might just be things to keep in mind as we are going forward, because those concepts are going to be referenced. Also, what we do see referenced is appendix, currently named Appendix A, which has to do with those classifications. So those are going to be other things to think about. if anybody does have any observations on the differences between average daily traffic, number of lots served, or whatever, by all means, sort of pipe up with that so we can be sure to discuss. Oops, going the wrong way. And this is a comment again that Marla has carried over from mine, in this discussion of street design and construction, after our first go round, I posed the question, is this the appropriate place, meaning in this section, to include language to indicate a preference for private roads unless a compelling need and useful connectivity can be shown in the plan? Does anybody want to sort of start with that before we get into sort of some of the deeper into this section? Anybody have any questions on any of that?
Well, you know my feelings, Tira. Indicate a preference for private roads unless a compelling need or useful connectivity can be shown. I don't think that there has to be a compelling need for a town-approved road.
So certainly that is the case under the existing structure, that our existing subdivision regulations. And just for the sake of the record and the minutes, and maybe this is the place where we discuss this, you and I, Dave, because we do come to it from differing perspectives right now. We demonstrated pretty clearly in the Plan of Conservation and Development that the town is fundamentally underwater on its road maintenance budget. Not only is, likely always will be, right? Based on what it costs, and just for road maintenance, right? Just for a regular repaving schedule, never mind winter maintenance and all that stuff. It's something like $250,000 per road mile, so that an annual budget for the town, just with the existing public roads that it has, should be a minimum of $1.625 million a year. And the year that we did that, and I haven't looked at what this year's proposal is, but the year that we did the POCD, it was something like $350,000 had been budgeted by the town, which I think with some state programs went all the way up to $750,000. So from a financial point of view, it seems to me irresponsible of the town to say, go ahead and propose more roads for the town to add to its inventory to maintain. Where does the money come to sustain that? Residential development, although it does contribute property taxes, does not contribute as much in property taxes as it costs to maintain them, both in terms of road maintenance and also in the case of public schools, although the public schools is kind of a separate issue that people sort of blow out of proportion. But just in terms of a straight one-to-one math relationship on road maintenance, it is not beneficial to the town to accept a private road unless, this is the case I'm making, the person proposing that road can say, look, this road will cut out 15 minutes of travel time for somebody getting from point A to point B that otherwise would be taken, burning fossil fuels or connecting important routes in the town. That's what I'm referring to as a compelling need, something along those lines. So that's my argument. And for the purposes of this, like I say, for the sake of the record and the minutes, Dave, I would love to hear your opposing viewpoint in that.
So the POCD, from my perspective, you can't argue with the numbers. What can be debated is the cost expectancy to the town of the road for the construction and maintenance when we have the construction standards that we're holding the developers to. And I'll bring you to Madison Avenue and what standards that road was held to, from the commission, from the director of public works. And that road, for all intents and purposes, will not need to be touched other than plowed for 30, 40 years. So there's a development that brought in, was it 15, 17 lots, $500,000 homes. That is a road we won't have to touch. And there's a number of roads within the town that are constructed in that same manner, cul-de-sacs, through roads. So to group new roads into an argument for privatizing all the roads and HOAs and private drives, right-of-ways, whatever you want to call them. I think that it limits the ability for the town to attract those people who can enhance the town with, with subdivisions, and not go to an HOA where, HOAs is something in Florida. I don't know. I don't see where there's a proven, a study that shows that they're feasible up in New England, I guess. I'm losing my words, but.
No, I know what you're saying. I mean, I guess my counter to your counter in terms of HOAs in particular is that every condo association in the country has an HOA, right? They are maintained by HOAs. They're condo associations, but that's still an association into which a homeowner pays, right? And they are definitely normative outside New England. I would suggest that part of the reason that they are not normative in New England is just that structurally, the towns up here are older, and therefore there's less room for them in general than in these places which are seeing their big boom in development now. I mean, I've been a condo manager. I fundamentally know how they work. It is slightly different when it is just a confederation of homeowners without a management company, but that's, I would suggest, probably a difference in degree, something we should definitely look more into. The other counter I would make, I guess, and I think this is my own fault for not expressing this, we're not prohibiting a developer from proposing a publicly accepted road as part of their plan. I would say that I think we should be incentivizing the private roads to remove the maintenance burden from the town, because as I said, and as you agreed, the numbers are the numbers, right? Even if a road doesn't need maintenance for 25 or 30 years instead of the standard 15, at some point that road is still going to need maintenance, right? And every road that we adds that financial component, even if it's on a slightly longer time scale. So while I would agree that building a publicly accepted road to the highest possible standard increases its longevity, there is no such thing as permanent infrastructure in that sense, right? There is no set it and forget it. You can just extend the time. So what I'm trying to get at here, and if I'm not communicating it properly, or if the commission still fundamentally disagrees, since all I can do is advise, right? I don't ultimately vote or make the decision. Is that we have the option as a commission to improve on the habits of the past by saying, look, if you come in here and let's say your subdivision is massive, right? And it has a clear need for a public road because it's going to connect two previously unconnected areas of town. People are going to travel, you know, I'm not sure that we have any parcels in town left that would support, 50 to 100 homes, but just for the sake of the discussion, right? 50 to 100 homes, these guys need, a real travelable connecting road. Okay, you hit the standards, you've satisfied the requirements, we're going to accept that public road. And in fact, on any development, if you hit the standards for a public road, like any other application, the commission would be obligated to accept it. What I'm trying to get at is, how do we incentivize a developer to do something smaller, with less pavement, with a lower burden on the taxpayer, and that shifts the responsibility to the homeowners, particularly in the areas that don't have other motivations for density, right? Without the connection to public water and sewer, places that are less able to absorb increased density. How do these things work together to preserve not a suburban sprawl setup for the town, but closer to that rural character that everybody claims that they value, and that I believe people, I mean, I value it. I don't even live in one of the rural-ish areas of town. What are the measures that are preservative to that character that people have expressed a preference for, that allow for development, that allow people still to monetize their large parcels if they want to, but that, don't add the financial burden and don't disrupt the conservation value. So those are the things I'm trying to get at. So when I say I want to incentivize private roads and shared drives, at no point am I actually saying prohibit, but I do think, and again, I'm open to, well, not just open to it. I mean, it's part of our job here. I want to hear all of the arguments for and against that anybody has to expressing that preference or leaving it neutral.
Just to offer my opinion again, and I guess the struggle I have is incentive, so what is that incentive? Is it monetary? Is it, the way I view it, if you look at, let's take a Madison Drive, right? So Madison Drive, if someone comes in to build a Madison Drive, and those people that are paying $500,000 for a home are not likely to take up residency there because they got to be part of an HOA and still pay the same tax base. So is the incentive, and I'm just throwing this out there, I don't even know what the repercussions are of this, but is the incentive that you're speaking of monetary, that if you enter into an HOA or a private road where it's going to be maintained by the HOA or, the residents of that road, is there a possibility of a lower tax base for that to incentivize not only the developer to go that way, but the people to buy into it too? Because you can build all the houses you want. If people don't want to buy them because they feel they're getting screwed, they're not going to buy them.
Sorry, just a point of order. I did want to recognize that Mr. Blackmer and Mr. Williams are both now in the meeting.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay. You know what I mean, Tara?
No, I do. This is why I'm typing your comment in here. I want
Oh, I
to,
didn't even see
I
that.
want, yeah, I want to get the sort of the most important points in here for when I go back.
I think that's what I struggle the most with. Do we, what is that incentive? What does the incentive look like? And it just has to be more tangible than, well, this is what we'd like you to do. This is what we're forcing you to do. This is what we're pushing you to do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every single parcel in this town should be developed, but I think strategically, there are parcels that can be developed still. And, how we approach it in these regs is significant for the future.
Oh, absolutely agreed. Anybody else want to chime in on this while I'm chewing this over for a second?
Mr. Chair, may I have in?
Of course, Mr. Lanking.
Thank you. Mr. Popolowski has brought up some real good points. If a developer wants to come in and he's got a piece of land and he wants to develop it, whether if it's 12 can be 12 lots, 14, 16, 18, up to 20 or whatever it takes. The HOA makes a good point if there is no legal access out the other end, unless he keeps a certain strip of land in between a couple houses on the cul-de-sac, let's use that, or a no outlet, where there is maybe another developer down the road with another piece of land behind that, where it would be coming off a town road on the other side. And then they could connect. Then that's something we might, and I'm looking at it as a point as the guy that's out there doing the work, for the developer and contractor, because that has been done in one or two towns where one developer come in and develop this, but they had to create the cul-de-sac or whatever, and then 4 or 5 years later, somebody else on the other end bought all this land and was going to do the same thing. And then but the problem that arose, there was no way to connect the two to make a legal street from one end to the other end. So that's something, I might be playing devil's advocate here, but that's something we might also have to throw into the thing. But if you're going to want to buy a house, spend $500,000, well, maybe I think you're a little high, Dave, but I'm on an average, I think houses are going to be built around here, 350 or whatever, 2 acres of land, that's reasonable. If you want to be on a piece of property, they should know up front that this could possibly be it's possibly that it could be really a private road, and they got to think about how they're going to maintain it. Will the developer do like a HOA thing with them? I mean, that would be up to them. It shouldn't be really up to us to say to them, well, it's going to be a private road, you have to do this. But we should have that stipulation somehow in some type of verbiage, because it could create chaos down the road.
Well, I think it only creates chaos if we leave the document in such a form that things aren't clearly delineated. And to your point about, what are the incentives? I will agree, Dave, that what I've been looking at have been the incentives for developers to design in a certain way. And a developer isn't going to plan for houses that he can't sell after he builds them. So a question that raises for me, and I am not even vaguely suggesting that I have the answer, but it's just something that occurs to me, is does that additionally motivate a developer to build smaller houses, both to keep the cost down for him as a developer increase his profitability, right, with what he can sell if he's got to build in that HOA fee. And then are we getting more to that sort of missing middle housing, right? The starter homes, the downsizing homes, and the homes to meet the needs of smaller families, all three of which are trends that we see. Does that create a concurrent pressure? I don't know the answer to that question, and I'm not suggesting that I do. But that does seem to me like it could be a cascading effect of the preference, again, for the more compact pavement profile with the private roads, which we're suggesting can be of a slightly narrower profile, may enable the developer, particularly out in the non-public utilities neighborhoods, to forego sidewalks. The things to keep the developer cost down can also keep the final product cost down to the purchaser. That's the kind of thing that I would actually be fascinated to ask an actual developer here in this conversation. We don't happen to have one right now. I've had conversations outside these meetings with developers who, when we have spoken to them about the changes in the zoning regulations and the kinds of things we're looking at in this update, have come with plans that look more like that to me. Smaller homes on smaller lots with less impact into the rest of the parcel on these, smaller private roads or shared drives. Maybe we just happen to have gotten guys who are on the leading edge. But I think there's some evidence to suggest that that might be the case. It's purely anecdotal, though. It's not what you would call a scientific sample by any means. Now, does anybody else have any thoughts here? And I don't think we're going to resolve this tonight. I just want to sort of get the arguments down here as best we can in the minutes, in the recording, and in the sidebar notes.
Okay, can I have the floor?
Absolutely, sir.
I don't agree with, I know I came in here kind of late, but I believe with what Mr. Popolowski was saying about the houses and tax incentives. And I can't see people putting houses here looking for private roads. It really doesn't go in our communities the way that they are set up. That like I said, it's more like something that goes on, into more congested areas where you have gated communities and that kind of stuff. But I can't see people spending money on a house where they're going to have a payment on top of it to take care of their roads.
May I speak?
Please do.
I agree with what Ray just said. This community is not a private road type community, and the restrictions would make it very difficult, even for the contractors to come in and build, and nobody's going to want to buy a house where they have to pay for their own road unless it is a gated community, which we don't really have. The incentives aren't there. And how would you get those incentives put through anyway?
I'm just getting your notes, the general character of your notes here in the sidebar.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would say that, right, I think we all recognize the benefits to the town of private roads. I think that math is sort of indisputable. the question is there a way that makes it that we're able to make it work for what Thompson is? And I'd be interested in trying to look at some of those ways to make it workable, if possible, if I'm being clear.
We have what used they're still called private roads down through Schoolhouse Pond, Little Pond area. And years ago, they had people that plowed their own roads, and now the town does the roads down there. Which is supposed to be private way, a private road, and so the town ends up seems like that takes them over, after a length of time,
How many private roads are there in town?
I've got a list back in my e-files at the office. It's off the top of my head, I want to say it's 30 to 40. And just in that latter point, Ray, I will absolutely agree that it is problematic that the town is plowing private roads. And I will also agree that the reason it happened is because over time, the town agreed to do it, therefore setting a bad precedent. But many, if not all of those roads predate the adoption of any zoning, right? So they exist in a bizarre little category of their own anyway. So to my way of thinking, and this is something that I've discussed with the director of DPW, who sadly is, has resigned and is leaving next week, but also with the first selectman, that, it would benefit the town to sort of reestablish those standards, even knowing that it's going to make some residents on those roads, unhappy, but they are private. The town doesn't own them. The town should not, in any legal sense, be taking care of them. It's just, one of those things that somebody decided to do it along the way, and then people got used to it. Anything go ahead, Ray.
Something happened down on Schoolhouse, down there where one of the roads got washed out and they couldn't afford to fix it. So the town ended up putting culverts in and for the water where it washed the roads out. And then after that is when they started, it's from what I remember, is when they started doing all the plowing down there.
Yeah, and I would say that just points to the fact that those roads were built with no standard articulated, right?
And
so if
that's not the only, Fred Davis Road, there's a whole bunch of them, they're not just, not just them roads down there. There's, ones that I know of anyway.
Yeah, and there are a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, Ray makes a great point. At any time you could have a washout on an HOA and the town's picking that up too.
But is the town picking it up if it's a buyer beware part of your HOA? You are signing that, it's in your deed, you've got an HOA fee, and your HOA fee, just like in a condo arrangement, goes into that management account, escrow, whatever it is, and that is what gets tapped into for annual maintenance and for emergency maintenance.
But then going back to what Dave was saying earlier, if the people aren't getting some kind of tax incentive, it wouldn't, why would they buy a house in an area like that?
I think the idea of these taxing districts is worth exploring.
I've thought long and hard of how we incentivize it, because there is some good in there. And I dug my heels in on not letting any new public roads. That's where I dug my heels in. But knowing what I know now, how do you incentivize if that's the goal? And I think the only way I could come up with was some sort of a tax incentive. And I don't know if legally that can be done or what that, that's way out of my realm, what the repercussions could be from that. But beyond that, I don't know how you get anyone to do that. Because they're gonna pay the same tax rate, as the guy who's living next door to him on a public road. And honestly, if I'm paying the same tax rate and my HOA goes bankrupt and my road washes out and I can't get out of my road, I'm gonna be coming to the town too.
Yeah, honestly, guys, the best argument, contrary to the acceptance of private roads, is that one, is the, what does the taxpayer get for his taxes then? And I don't want to suggest that I don't think that's a valid argument. It clearly is. But and I'm going to continue to make this argument because I think it's so important. The maintenance costs over time, the acceptance of new infrastructure where we don't want additional density or where we don't want massive influx of density. I feel like I'm not articulating this super well. And I'm struggling to find that sort of crystal clear argument, which intuitively I feel that the private road issue is actually less something that would be suitable to the high density areas and something more suitable to the more rural areas, again, because it would incentivize smaller lots, smaller houses, less pavement, and therefore more open space, which we know is a priority. Whereas in the high density, or for us, high density, right? It's never going to be super high density here. Let's call it, for lack of a better term, the urbanized areas, because that's what the Department of Transportation would call it. The downtown core, the Route 12 and Route 131 corridors, the places that are highly traveled already, that have connection to utilities, they can support tons and tons and tons of density, which does build the tax base in a way, not just by potentially bringing in more commercial development, because you'll get more commercial development where there are more bodies for those commercial enterprises to serve, but the burden that development in those areas creates is lower, right? Because the footprints are smaller. So this is a way, I think, and again, some of it is intuitive. I have seen these arguments laid out. I would struggle to put my fingers right on them, but I'm sure that I can go back and find some. That the thing that creates suburban sprawl, right, which is lots and lots of blocks, lots and lots of cul-de-sacs, lots and lots of new roads, lots and lots of houses on lawns next to each other, one after the other, that stuff cuts into your open space, right? And if you have that laissez-faire, propose whatever you want as long as it meets the standards, and we'll just keep accepting the roads, and that's what actually seems to me to be more degrading to the preservation of the outlying landscape. And I know from this commission and from, the recent stuff we've been doing with the Ag Commission to try to tackle this issue of how to preserve open space, and all the work we did on the POCD last year, it's obvious that people value what they see when they drive through town, the uncut into landscape. So I guess it's kind of a roundabout way for me of saying, keep your developments small, keep them internally managed so that there is less incentive for a developer to just flatten large tracts of land and put roads through them. and again, I just feel like I'm not making the best and clearest argument. But that is what I'm trying to balance here, right? Is to make people want to build where we can support building, build and monetize their large parcels in the outlying districts, you know, if they want to, but to a standard that is less intense. And that's what I'm trying to get to, a lower intensity standard for areas that, according to everything I've heard from everybody I talk to in town, we would rather see less development in. You know what I'm saying? I mean, is that a little clear? I'm trying to be as clear as I can.
Yeah, I get it. I understand it. I just, the only thing that, you know, when you say smaller homes with more lots on a private way, I don't see how that doesn't contribute to what do you, the word use, urban sprawl or whatever it is, because, you know, if you're putting a lot more houses on that cul-de-sac and putting an HOA and limiting what people can do, I think it contributes in a way.
I think if it's badly written, then you're right. It does contribute, which is why I think we have to be careful. The example I would use is, and we'll get to it later, obviously, because it's a later section, conservation subdivisions specifically say, we will let you pack smaller lots closer together if you agree to put aside more open space, right? So it's using math to get to less sprawl while providing more profit for a developer. And, you know, those standards, of course, are again going to come up later because it's a late section here, but it's the same basic concept. How we write this, how our final version looks, is what is going to make the difference between whether we've accidentally created more opportunities for sprawl or whether we have intentionally driven development where we want it while saying to private landowners of large parcels, yes, you may develop this, but we're going to disincentivize you from clear cutting, essentially, from flattening things. And we sort of had a version of this argument as well when we reduced the lot sizes in general. You know, it can seem counterintuitive that a smaller house lot is a more environmentally sound house lot. A lot of people think that if you have a larger parcel, it automatically means there's somehow more green space, but that's only the case if you choose to make it so, right? So if I have a 1 acre parcel that I own, the most that I can affect is that 1 acre. If I have a 2 acre parcel, there's nothing stopping me from chopping every tree down on it and replacing it with lawn and so forth and so on. You know, just because a parcel is bigger does not mean that it is more preserved. So that's why I think that these parameters around what we're describing for how people can propose streets are very important. I don't know. I don't have the full, and we've been at the first three sentences here now for 44 minutes. I guess I'll say, does anybody have, we're obviously not resolving this with, you know, half the commission here in one night, and this is going to end up going for final decision to the full board. But I want to get as many of the arguments and points in here as I can.
I think I'd like to talk to a couple contractors, a couple builders, and get a little bit input through them. You know, just to get a different perspective on it.
I think that's a great idea, Ray.
I know quite a few of them around, and I don't mind, you know, I definitely like to investigate it a little more.
I also think that we need to look into the tax incentives and how that would be done. Because there's no point in coming forward with this and saying there'll be an incentive unless we know how that's going to happen and whether it's going to be feasible.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, Jane. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, we need to do some homework on this.
Yeah, I think that is, I think both of those latter points are excellent. And I can reach out to some of the builders and developers we've had good experiences with, to get their perspective for sure. And Ray, if you want to reach out to some of the guys that you know, and I'll see what I can find out about taxing districts. They definitely, taxing districts definitely exist in Connecticut, even without sort of that more southern and western tendency for homeowners association development. So, but I'll see what I can find out.
You would, Tara, you would have a real good luck checking in on that if you would go to the Gulf Coast area. of
Oh yeah,
Connecticut.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Because that pretty much exists down there. Because that's the way of life down there. You know, that's the extension of New York City and all of that. But it comes all the way up to New Haven, goes follows 95 right up almost into some areas of Old Saybrook, almost not quite towards New London, Groton area, but mostly the 95 corridor from that point all the way down and up Route 7, Route 8, going up towards Waterbury. I mean, those towns well, you know, because I've traveled them enough that you can see some of this. But that's what we need to do, because this is, you know, it's how do they handle it? Or, you know, this is something new for us. You know,
I'll reach out to my friend, well, my colleague really, Mike D'Amato. He's with Casio, which is the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers, and he also is a consultant, a municipal planning consultant, private one. He and John Guzkowski broke off to form Tyke Planning. They helped us with our affordable housing plan. Those guys are a great wealth of knowledge. I will reach out to them tomorrow and see if they can point me in any good directions to ferret out some of this information.
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference between the types of home, and I call it the Gold Coast because I used to have to travel there on a weekly basis. It's a much richer area than what we have here. We used to be considered the Appalachia of the Northeast. So, I mean, obviously they have a different scale than what we would be able to work with. So,
but it's something to work with.
Yeah, it's something to look at, but I mean, we aren't a rich community.
No, I wasn't saying that. All I was saying was how do they come about? You know, their methods, their solution is to do this. So it's you know, even though we're the forgotten corner, but you know, we're trying to make something of it. But you know, you're right. We still need to for us to attract people to come in. We have to be very reasonable. You know, I mean, I get it. I understand. I wouldn't want to come into this town and, you know, I got a chance to buy this $300,000, $400,000 or $500,000 house. It's on a private road or a cul-de-sac or whatever, and I have to join a HOA and still pay taxes. And there's got to be a give and take. I get that, but how can I say myself? My opinion would be is where's the justification to it? Okay. So we have to figure out, we have to get answers from other people that have dealing with this. And then we just take it and figure out what's the best alternative route to work with, I mean, do we do it this way or we do it that way or whatever? Like I said, I don't have a solution for it myself, but I know that they're out there that exist in the state. Even in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, you have them. How do they do it to make it so it's so-called equal?
Yeah, yeah, and I'll reach out, like I said, to John and Mike at Tyke Planning. Their experience is considerable and all across the state. And John, of course, is one of my predecessors in this position. So he's also super, super familiar with the specifics of this town. So that they're a great resource.
Yeah, and that's what I was just gonna say, was the specifics of this town, and look at other communities as we're doing the homework on this that are comparable to what Thompson is.
Yeah.
To get a better look as to how we would be able to go about doing it.
Yeah. And that I will promise to do. Okay, so let's move on from that, just to try to get to some other topics here tonight. Obviously, we need more discussion, and clearly, before anything is adopted here, this is one of those important topics that's going to go before the full commission in a regular meeting, I'm sure. Okay, so here we have some notes regarding the section on street planning. These are more flow notes. You'd sort of laid this out. Now, Alvin had suggested that this be parceled out into a separate subsection, but I think that's more formatting. I think we can probably move on to something else conceptual. Let's see. All right, let's take a look at this one. A subdivision bordered by an existing impassable or unimproved town road shall improve said road to substantially conform to the standards for new roads proposed for town acceptance to the nearest intersection with a town road. And this is altered language. Does anybody have a copy in front of them of the current subdivision regulations so that we can compare this language to what exists?
You're talking 08, right?
Yes, sir. So it would be Article 4, Section 2, J. I think the letters are pretty close, but street design, whatever Article 4, Section 2, and the subsection for street design.
Hang
And
on,
then,
I got it.
yeah,
Page 21. Yeah, What was it again? What was that again?
so I
What
just
was
want to
the-
know what the original language says for existing streets. We have ABC, letter C. A subdivision bordered by an existing impassable or unimproved town road shall improve said road to substantially conform to the standards for new roads proposed for town acceptance to the nearest intersection with a town road. That is slightly different language, I know, but I want to hear them compare and contrast if we can.
Hmm. Did you say C or
Well, it's C on the page here. It could have a different letter in the existing.
read what you just said again, please?
So Tira, I've got something that's okay, here we go. Subdivision on one side of an existing impassable or unimproved town road shall improve said road to substantially conform to the standards for new roads proposed for town acceptance to the nearest intersection with an improved town road.
Okay, So it's really the omission of one word that we have to,
Yeah,
okay. So let's read Marla's comment in context of that. Recommend keeping the original language, meaning to the nearest intersection with an improved town road. And her example is this: doing a subdivision that borders, for example, Rich Road, located west of I-395. The nearest town road is Owen Adams Road, which is also an unimproved road. With the proposed language, only Rich Road would be required to be improved and not Owen Adams Road. Who would be responsible for improving Owen Adams Road? The town. Question. I mean, I think the simple answer to that question is if anybody was going to be improving the town road, if it's not bordering the subdivision, it would have to be the town. That doesn't mean that the town is obligated to improve it, I think, is the answer to that. But Owen Adams Road does not. So Rich Road and Owen Adams Road, I think, come at each other, you know, they tee off to one another. And then
They're not
The
even
sig-
close to another. 395 separates them.
separates them.
Yep.
Interesting.
Owen Adam Road is a disconnected road, discontinued.
Is it I think one of the issues with Owen Adams Road is that it's not actually formally discontinued. The town still acknowledges it, they just don't maintain it.
Yeah, there's a bridge out. We
yeah.
just heard a gravel mining permit for down now.
Yeah.
So shouldn't be a proposed subdivision bordered by an existing impassable? I mean, we're talking about new subdivisions, right?
Correct.
So should it like mimic a proposed subdivision bordered by an existing impassable, or is it just implied? Maybe I'm looking too deep into it.
Finish your thought, because I'm not sure until you finish the thought.
Oh, it was just that. It should be a proposed subdivision bordered by an existing impassable or unimproved town road, you know, with the rest of it. I just think it should be delineated proposed.
Okay. I don't disagree with that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around. I think that the reason that we made that edit was based on an observation by Dave Held, who, as I recall, wondered if legally we can essentially ask a developer to continue beyond that which borders their own development and, you know, essentially improve roads indefinitely until they connect with something improved. And I think that that's why we made that choice, because that logic seemed compelling. That doesn't mean it doesn't create other questions and issues, such as the one that Marla raised. Let's read through all three of these just for giggles. Existing streets. A, proposed subdivisions abutting an existing town street or state highway shall provide for proper widening of the right-of-way of such street or highway to the width appropriate for the classification given such street or highway by the commission in accordance with the requirements of the town road ordinance, CTDOT standards, and these regulations. B, drainage and other improvements made necessary by the subdivision shall be constructed in the existing town street as required by the road ordinance, CTDOT standards, and these regulations. C, a proposed subdivision bordered by an existing impassable or unimproved town road shall improve said road to substantially conform to the standards for new roads proposed for the town acceptance to the nearest intersection with a town road. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't see that there is a better way to describe C, with the possible exception of adding the word improved. But that could, in some cases, be asking a developer, again, I think in a case like this Owen Adams Road, or maybe some other, parcels out where there are little clusters of private roads or unmaintained roads, to make improvements beyond the boundaries of their parcel.
Tira,
Yes, Alvin.
how do you board it? What do we mean by subdivision boarded? Is they
Well, I
going
guess
to-
until
they're
you,
gonna- Are they going to extend a subdivision to an existing impassable road? I don't know. I don't know what boarded, how that defines a sentence.
yeah, well, I guess because a subdivision is a parcel of land, right, that has to have access to a road somewhere, somehow, whether you're, adding a new road that connects to another town road or not. So that at some point on that parcel, one of those boundary lines must end at a road, right? Except for,
Well, I can understand that, but is that a used? See, I'm just confused by, there's something missing between subdivision and boarded.
Yeah, so I think just from looking at the regulations as currently written, I might be able to give a little bit of context to that, Alvin. As written, there are 3 subsections. Subdivisions on one side of an existing impassable or unimproved town road. Subdivisions on the side opposite an unimproved or impassable town road. And subdivisions on both sides of an unimproved or impassable town road. And I seem to recall that our first pass through this, we thought that those distinctions were arbitrary or unnecessary. And I think that's how we got to bordered by.
Yeah, but we're asking the contractor to improve a road that's not going to be used within his proposed subdivision. I mean,
so
that
that
just
should that
seems,
just be connecting to?
yeah, connecting with, you gotta define. I mean, if I'm a contractor and I buy a piece of land that borders a impassable road, I'm going to be required to say it's 150 or 200 feet away from my existing line. I mean, it just seems we're adding a disincentive for that subdivision.
I think I see what you're saying, Al, because let's say it's a square parcel that happens to have, and this is totally hypothetical, right? But we're using the hypothetical to illustrate whether or not this makes sense. Let's say you have a perfect square parcel. 3 sides of that square are bounded by existing unimproved town roads. This circumstances we acknowledge does not actually exist. 3 of 4 sides border the proposed subdivision and are unimproved. 1 side borders an improved town road, and that's where they're proposing their access. The way this is worded, bordered by, literally suggests to me, I think exactly what you're getting to, Alvin, which is that all of those bordering roads need to be improved. And I don't think that's what we intend. It's the connecting road. Yes? Am I off? Somebody help me here.
No, you're right.
Okay, I'm gonna do this.
The only way they should have to upgrade any road is if that's their right of way to get into their property.
Correct. It has to be something
So
with
connecting
the
to the
proposed
entrance.
subdivision.
Correct. If like if they were trying to put a housing development 400 feet down Owen Adam Road, they would have to connect it on Owen Adam Road. But if they could go in off of Wilsonville Road, they shouldn't have to connect. They shouldn't have to do any improvements on Owen Adam Road just because they border that road.
That's,
No, if-
that's what I was getting at, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we fix most of this by saying connecting to it and instead of bordered by. Then the other
Right.
question is it the nearest intersection with a town road, any town road, or an improved town road? I'm still pretty sure that the reason we took out improved was because it may have extended the burden to improve beyond, essentially beyond that which the Planning and Zoning Commission had the authority to demand.
Yep.
Right.
Is that consistent with what you remember, Joe? Because I feel pretty confident that that's why we changed that.
I think you're right. That jogs my memory.
Okay, I'm gonna, again, go out on a limb and say, I think we have solved most of that problem. You can't solve all of every
Tira,
problem.
while we're here, can you just
Yep.
scroll back up again for a second?
Of course. Tell me where.
Just for consistency, I was, can you, in B, drainage and other improvements made necessary by the proposed subdivision?
Yep.
Thanks.
There we go.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Joe. Thank you. Forgot about that one.
Oh, great minds, guys. You can tell we spend a lot of time together. All right, so now we're back to owners associations and private roads. Let's revisit the topic on this narrow band. So we'll read number 4, subdivisions on existing private roads. In order for a subdivision proposed on an existing private road to be approved, one of the following conditions must be met. The existing private road shall be demonstrated to conform to the standards for new private roads to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works, or the existing private road shall be improved. Oops. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Oh, well. Close enough. Or the existing private road shall be improved to conform to the standards for new private roads, and an association shall be established to maintain said road. Now we're getting back to that association piece. I think this is a slightly simpler piece of it. Let's look at Marla's comment. What is meant by an association shall be established? What are the requirements for setting up an association? Is it a legal document that is placed on the land records like a condo association and then referenced in the deed for each lot? By the way, the answer to that question would be yes. What if other property owners on the existing private road don't agree to the establishment of such association? What then? Perhaps subdivisions should not be allowed on existing private roads. That, I think, might be a point worth discussing. So let's discuss it. And again, Joe, since you have the existing subdivision regulations in front of you, is this, remind me, is this something that we added to acknowledge private roads, or is this in there?
No, yeah, it like completely reverses it, right? It says no subdivision will be approved on an existing private road unless it meets either of the following requirements. Road improved to conform to standards for new private roads. An association is set up to remain said road. So that's, you know, similar. road improved to standards for Newtown Road and accepted by the road, or by the town.
So read it again.
Yeah, no subdivision will be approved on an existing private road unless it meets either of the following requirements. 1, road improved to conform to standards for new private roads and association is set up to maintain said road. 2, road improved to standards for Newtown Road and accepted by the town.
Okay. So we eliminated the latter point and separated the first point into these two options.
Mhm.
Okay, who's got thoughts here? I mean, and a third option is that subdivisions should not be allowed on existing private roads, which, you know, I don't know if Marla is suggesting that as an actual suggestion or just hypothesizing. So we have 3 ways to approach this, which I guess is acknowledging that there are parcels that connect to, are bordered by, however you want to think about it, existing private roads, which may otherwise be eligible for subdivision. So how do you want to approach that standard? Anyone? Mr. Poplawski?
I'm struggling with this one because I don't know how you let someone build a new town road and the only entrance to it is off a private road. And the trucks that are going to maintain that new town road are going to go up that private road.
So are you suggesting that subdivisions should not be allowed where the only access point is an existing private road?
Not trying to be too restrictive, but it's either that or they make that, like Joe said in the other regs, the previous regs, is they bring that up to the standards and we accept it as a public road once it's up to standards. Or I guess the third option is they turn the whole thing into an HOA. You know, they build that subdivision. Their only option is to build it as a private road or an HOA. I just think we're opening up a can of worms. We try going in. I mean, I know we do it down Schoolhouse, you know, like Ray brought up before, you know, there's portions that we go through, but you know, that was created long before our time.
Yeah, because it was simpler to just plow the road to get to where they had to get, instead of just trying to go all the way around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And-
would say if it already comes off of a private road, then they should have to have it as a private road in the subdivision.
That I would definitely agree with, but it doesn't solve the problem that Dave identifies, which is in order to do that construction, you're still going to have major traffic going in and out of an unmaintained road. But the point of if its access point is a private road, it must also be a private road. I would agree with that logic, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm
Like
still
Mr.
trying to.
Lincoln says, don't mix apples with oranges.
Unless you're making mulled wine, in which case, please do. Heavy on the cloves, light on the cinnamon. No, the other way around. Heavy on the cinnamon, light on the cloves. Connecting only to a private road. E.g. an unmaintained road. While I'm typing this stuff in, please continue to discuss. Do we all at least agree with the logic that if we're going to allow a private road to be the connecting point to a new subdivision, that the roads within the subdivision should be private roads? That seems pretty compelling to me, and I'm glad Ray brought that up.
Yes.
Yes, I agree with that as well.
Yep.
I don't know. Does anybody else have any thoughts on the difference between these three options that we've got in front of us? The difference between this and what exists, and we can read them again. Or the third option, which is just to prohibit them on private roads, but on existing private roads. Why don't we read through them again? I'll read this one, Joe, then you read up with the original. Okay, proposed subdivisions on existing private roads. In order for a subdivision proposed on an existing private road to be approved, one of the following conditions must be met. A, the existing private road shall be demonstrated to conform to the standards for new private roads to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works. Or, the existing private road shall be improved to conform to the standards for new private roads, and an association shall be established to maintain said road. That's what's proposed. Joe, read the original again.
No subdivision will be approved on an existing private road unless it meets either of the following requirements. 1, road improved to conform to standards for new private roads and association is set up to maintain said road. 2, road improved to standards for new town road and accepted by the town.
And then option 3 is subdivisions shall not be allowed on existing private roads.
Joe, can you read what in order for, what is it? The first part of that again?
No subdivision will be approved on an existing private road unless it meets either of the following requirements.
Okay. I'm just wondering, do we? Yeah. Okay, I hold that thought.
Well, no, don't hold your thought. I want to know what it is.
Do we call it out as a private subdivision right in the beginning? Private subdivisions on existing private roads. Or, then the reason I didn't want to say it is because it doesn't encompass everything.
Well, I think theoretically any subdivision that's under an owner's association essentially is a private subdivision. I mean, I guess what I'm trying, I think that might be a distinction without a difference.
Yeah, I agree.
What are your thoughts, Mr. Chairman?
My thoughts are, I'm having a little bit of a hard time wrapping my head around this one. So Marla's comment is specifically about what it means that an association shall be established. So aside from her question at the end, perhaps subdivisions should not be allowed on existing private roads, which we've been discussing as a third option. Yeah, like there's not a question about the substantive regulation there, which is very much in line with the first condition as previous. Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling.
Could I chime in here for a second on this?
Yes,
Yeah,
please, Ray.
absolutely.
Okay, on B, if you're already on a private road and I can't see an association that's already on a existing private road that's been there for years is gonna wanna kick in money to bring that private road up to standards for a builder that's gonna be building a new subdivision off of that road. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but.
No, I think I know exactly what you're saying, Ray, and it's a good point.
People are gonna be paying for a fee for a road that they've already been driving on for years. To help out a builder that's putting in a subdivision further down on.
Yeah,
It should go back to what kind of we would said in the beginning. If the developer or the contractor want to do it, then he wants to put that subdivision and everything in, then he's gonna have to accept the burden to upgrade the road. As that would be the only logical thing. Why should
Yeah,
the
it would have to- it would
people
have to be
that, like
put into
Ray
the
just
regs
said,
that way.
what's that?
That would have to be put into the regs that way, that it would be the burden of the contractor to update the roads before they're maintained by the association.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head, but you're right. That's what this is all about is that by hashing this all out, this is how we're trying to figure out what is going to be the proper verbiage, what is going to be the proper thing to put in. I would say, me personally, my feeling is we're going to have to, as if I wanted to put this development in, I know I'm going to make good money at it and everything. What's a few extra chunks of change to fix a road to make it proper for me to put my development in, so I'll have the best thing going in. You're not going to get anybody driving down a dirt road or a half baked asphalt road, then when you get into the subdivision or development area, you're going to be on a new road, nice 50-foot road or whatever with sidewalks and everything. But you got to drive down this crappy road to get to it.
Yeah, so I guess the response to Ray's question is, how realistic is it to expect the existing homeowners on the existing private road to buy in? I guess if the developer is smart, he's saying what you get for your buy-in as a part of this HOA is that this road will be maintained by the HOA. So if it's an unmaintained private road, that might be enough of an incentive. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Okay, say you've got an association in on this private road. The developer wants to come in and extend it.
Mhm.
And this is just something that I was just thinking. Don't the associations usually vote on what can happen in their area?
Yeah, typically homeowners associations are required to meet at least once a year, and yes,
Because I'm thinking if they've got somebody coming in that's gonna, develop next to it, and they're gonna be told that they've gotta maintain this with their HOAs, that's not gonna wash. I mean, I liked, that if a developer is gonna come in and do it in this area, then he's got to be the one that, like Mr. Lenke said, he's got to put a little bit more out to do those roads.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, why should the HOAs, have to foot the bill? I mean, they're footing the bill now.
Exactly. Yeah,
They're
they
footing the
don't,
bill where they are now.
yeah.
I mean, but see, that's what this is all about, is that we have to try to figure out, okay, me, you want, if you want to put in a 10, a 12, 14, 20, a subdivision or whatever it take, well, you want to do it. This is what the private road is. Now you bring the private road up to specs and, let it roll.
And that's the way I think it should be worded, that the developer is the one that's gonna be responsible for that. Not
I
the
agree.
association, it's the developer, and that needs to be, so the developer also knows what he's getting into.
Correct.
He knows beforehand, before he starts this. And,
Correct.
and that's the way it should be worded, so that he doesn't have any surprises, any more than the association is gonna have any surprises.
Kara.
Can I ask a question? This is Cindy. I came in late.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. So, but that still doesn't take care of the person that has been there for years on that undeveloped road. What's the answer to that person? Does he still have to pay the association? And if he says, I like it like this all my life and I don't want to see it change, I mean, what happens to that person? And that goes back to Ray's question.
Yeah, you're right. What happens in?
I actually have, because I've lived on a private road for 40 years. And if anybody ever came here and told me I had to pay to have it developed, I would politely tell them to take a walk.
Well, Cindy, that's why they were saying that the developer would have to pay instead of if somebody wanted to do that down the road from you, the developer would have to upgrade your road, and take care of the cost. And
Oh.
you wouldn't have a cost on that.
But what if I don't want an upgrade, and then who takes care of it afterwards? Does the developer or does the homeowners association? And does that person, and say it's me, then do I have to pay the homeowners association to maintain a road that I didn't even want in the first place and I didn't have for 40 years?
See, I guess I'm a little bit confused. I thought we were just talking about an area that was a private road that was being maintained, but has an association in there. So you're talking two separate things then. Somebody that's living on a private road, and then a developer wants to come in and put something in and put in place an association. Does that mean then, oh, I don't want to be part of that association? So yeah, what happens there?
Okay, I think I just figured this out. Hold on. I think I just figured this out. Let me try this. Give me a second. Continue to talk amongst yourselves.
So Ray, is what I'm saying, is that what you had in mind too?
Yeah, we're on private roads. We're not talking about,
Is that private road owned by a homeowners association, or is just the homeowners association going to own the roads in the subdivision?
Yeah, I think we're talking about apples and oranges here now. Because I thought we were just talking about a private road with an association.
Yeah, I think I know the problem here. I think referring to an association for the existing private road, which is the connecting road, I think that can't be enforced. I think that's why we're all having such trouble here. That the developer can create and essentially enforce by means of placing it on the deeds for his homes, an HOA on his development.
Yes.
But we cannot, yes, okay. We just need to strike this.
Okay.
Strike what?
Strike this piece of it, because you cannot, we cannot compel existing residents on an existing private road to form an association. We might encourage them to join into association with the new development so that they get their maintenance costs taken care of on an otherwise unmaintained road. But you're right, you can't force them. So the
No.
existing private road shall be improved to conform to the standards for new private roads. Now, that doesn't place any burden on anybody for maintenance afterwards, right? Because just as we can't ask those existing residents to join an HOA, you can't ask an HOA to pay for the maintenance of the connecting road unless the connecting road is in the association.
Correct.
But that leaves the existing homeowners still better off than they were before if they get an improved road, right?
Yes.
And no worse off in terms of their maintenance.
Yeah, because
So-
they're already maintaining it on their own.
Or not maintaining it and complaining about
Yeah,
it. Right?
yeah.
No, let's back up. So when it comes to plowing, the homeowners association only plows where their road begins, but if the homeowners are in front of it, how does that person get into the homeowners association to plow the road?
It's a little bit different. I think it's the town trucks are gonna go through the private road to get to the public subdivision road. That's where the problem's gonna come in.
But not if it's,
Okay, I'm just playing devil's advocate because I live in such an ideal place. I don't want anybody up here. So I'm playing the devil's advocate
a
here.
private road, who plows your road?
We do.
The people that live on the road?
Nobody else lives here. Live in front of us, but nobody lives. I'm just imagining in my mind if the town of Putnam allowed this land, these acres behind me, around me, surrounding me, say, oh, we've got a way that we can get a subdivision in there, but we've got to go down that road you've been using for 40 years. You don't think I'd be yelling and screaming?
But is that road legally on the town map?
Yes.
Then there really wouldn't be nothing you'd be able to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I go to court immediately. I forget what the term is.
But that would be your option.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But if the road is legally on the map of the town of Putnam, okay, we'll use your road. You brought it in, and I'm not trying to be whatever. But
Yeah.
if the road is legally on the map
Considered
and
a
it's
paper
whatever
street.
the name it is, but
It's
you take and plow the road from a certain point to your house.
absolutely.
Okay, but now if somebody wanted to put a subdivision behind you, I'm just using this as an example, what is it? 15, 20 acres, 30 acres, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And that's the only way that they can get to that property to do what they want to do. Then two things, well, my feeling is then if the developer wants to do it, he's gonna have to sit down and talk this out with you and come up with an alternative that, he'll repair the road, fix it, make it, bring it to standards or whatever, and then you still have the access to the road, or it goes to the town and then goes through the planning and zoning and et cetera, town ordinance, whatever it is, to make it a legal town road, which it is probably still considered, and then you can be SOL.
It's an unapproved, it's what we call.
It's an
paper
unapproved, but
streets.
it's still considered a town, so to speak, a town road, correct?
It's on the map as an unimproved paper street, and I would go to court to claim it. Yep.
Unfortunately.
But anyways, we're not talking. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I see a lot of
Just-
issues with this, but if you can word it so that people understand clearly where they stand, I don't have any problem with it. I'm
So
just playing
Cindy,
the
this
devil's
is what you were
advocate.
bringing up with, what's it, Beatty Street over there, when, off of, with Mumford.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
That was why you were questioning that. Pretty much the same thing.
yeah, it is. And Mumford can't use that road.
Cindy, on a private road, doesn't the property owners own to the center line?
I don't know. It,
No, by state statutes, if they own the property to the center line, then the road will not exist. It becomes a landlocked. Your property becomes landlocked if you own to the center line.
I know in municipalities I've dealt with, private roads, the people on a private road own to the center line, the abutting properties own to the center line on the road, and it was considered private. So to take it to become a town road, it had to, you had to have the offsets. I'm just wondering what the statute is in either Connecticut or Thompson, on these
yeah,
private
I
roads.
think you'd have to really look at the statutes to see.
I mean, because that comes into play here, because you're not, if it's a
Yeah.
private road and the property line is to this, and maybe Alvin knows, but you're talking about not a private road where no one owns the center, the road itself.
Mm,
Good question.
That would be interesting to find out, because that would determine what this whole thing, what you can really do here.
Yep.
I guess you
Cindy,
could.
does that road go past your house or does it dead end at your house?
What was that?
Does that road go past your house or does it dead end at your house?
It ends at my house.
If it went by, I would think that you'd have trouble stopping if it's listed on the town roads. You'd have a problem. I think you'd have a problem either way.
Not if I'm maintaining it for 40 years. I don't think I'd have a problem in court. No.
Okay.
But actually, just while she's typing that and we're talking, I'm actually going to go to court to try to claim it anyway, because I'm sure 10 years we'll be selling the house or something, but it's a little bit of heaven in a hell of a town.
It raises a big question, which is, I don't think any one of us can come up with a real good answer until we really get some good definitive information.
All right, let me run this by you, because I wanted to get this typed out while it was percolating in my head. Tell me if you think this sort of solves several of these problems. Subdivisions on existing private roads. The town encourages all subdivisions to connect to existing public roads. Where development of a subdivision is only possible by connecting to an existing private road, in order for that proposed subdivision to be approved, one of the following conditions must be met. I'm going to have to change the outline here, but let's just deal with them. The existing private road shall be demonstrated to conform to the standards for new private roads to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works, or the existing private road shall be improved to conform to the standards for new private roads. Where the only possible access to the proposed subdivision is to connect to an existing private road, any new proposed roads in the subdivision may only be private roads. The property owners on the existing private road may be invited to join the maintenance association for any new private roads within the subdivision, but they shall not be required to do so.
I like that, Tara, but the problem is they only have to meet one of the following conditions.
Well, I think part of it is that C and D actually don't flow after A and B is the same list. Those are actually, so this would become like the town encourages all would be A, where only possible access would be B, and the property owners on the existing private road would be C. And the conditions for the construction are still one of those two.
Put it B1, B2, because it falls in under, because I agree, the first two are pretty much what define it. The other two being put in there would be
Oops.
subtitles.
Yeah, and that's a formatting thing,
Yeah.
which is easy enough to fix, although apparently not right now, but.
Yeah, they just fall in, they just fall in under them, and it, giving a little bit more in-depth explanation if they were to run into this type of problem.
Let me get in here.
So what happens if you start out with the town encourages, I'm not sure encourages is the right word. Town requires all subdivisions to connect to an existing public road. And then after that, where the development of the subdivision is only possible by connecting through an existing private road, that leave that up to the developer, whether he can handle it or whether he's got to put his road out through the pucker brush somewhere else.
I don't like the word require for all
Well,
subdivisions.
What are you gonna do? Let him put
Well, if we're going to require all subdivisions to connect to
Yeah.
existing public roads, then essentially number 4 here becomes totally moot. And we're just saying you can't do it. You have to connect to a public road. I can envision, and I think that there do exist parcels in town that are landlocked other than being able to connect through private roads.
Yeah, required is encourages is better.
okay, so I want to put in a development that the only access is across a private road. It'd be up to me to negotiate how to make that private road part of my development, my subdivision.
Well,
Yeah.
not necessarily. What we're saying here, all we're saying here that has to be done is that the existing private road has to be demonstrated to already, be constructed to road standards, or you as the developer have to improve that road. Essentially, you are assuming the burden, the maintenance burden for the time that you are constructing it, right? You're improving the road. That's your reward to the people who live on this private road, which may be a dirt road, may just be unmaintained asphalt, whatever it is. But then your responsibility fundamentally ends. And what I'm suggesting here as a middle ground is that that developer can offer to the existing residents on the connecting private road the chance to buy into the HOA so that they would also benefit from whatever plowing and maintenance the HOA would provide. Or they could say, pound sand, thank you for my nicely new improved road, but we're going to continue maintaining it as we have.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think, let's be clear. I don't think that that this comes up in any but a handful of situations. But in those situations where it comes up, we should have clear guidelines.
I think these are much clearer now.
Dave, if I fix the outline, does that resolve your issue with it? Was it just the formatting, or did you have something else in there?
No, I think the formatting addresses it, Tara.
Okay.
Yeah, the way it said, one of the following conditions must be met. So you're going to take C and D, and it's going to fall under A and B and clarify, so.
So it's going to be letter A. It's going to be letter A, and then lowercase Roman numeral 1, lowercase numeral 2, and then it's going to be letter B and letter C.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But for some reason, when I'm trying to do it right now, it's messing up the page. So I'm going to leave that till tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that fixes the issue.
All right.
Yeah, Tara,
Yes, Alvin.
before we move on, could you bring your screen down a little? There you go. The conversation term must. Let's take that out and substitute shall. One of the following conditions shall be met, not must as conversation only.
Yep. Good catch, Alvin.
Yeah.
Good man, Charlie Brown.
Let me just scroll ahead because we've got about 15 minutes to 9 o'clock. I want to see how much more road stuff there is if we can get through the whole. Oh yeah, we can get all the way through this. And then we would start next week with K. All right, so by the way, is anybody else hearing that beating in the background, or is that just in my headset?
Oh, I can hear it.
I
Yeah.
can hear it. I can hear it too.
Hearing what in the background?
It's like it's interference. I actually think it's off my headset, but I can't
Oh.
figure out why it's doing it.
It just stopped.
Yeah, I jiggled my connection. Okay.
You got the aliens interrupting you.
Wouldn't be the first time. Surprised it's not the cats getting jealous. Okay, so this comment is just a language one. Let's find something substantive here. Comment, it was suggested that this information be struck from here in favor of including it in the appendices. If so, the item should state the standards for, okay, so that is just a suggestion. Do we describe the standards for intersections here or in the construction appendices? I'm kind of inclined to keep all the construction standards together where they're actually talking about dimensions, and that is in the appendices. Does anybody have strong feelings that this should be here instead of there?
I would agree. It should be in the appendices.
Anybody else have strong feelings one way or the other?
You keep them all together.
Yeah. That does not look right, but I think it is. Okay. And that's a formatting question. We can ignore that. Street names. Easy, easy. Actually, I think that's it, guys, because this was just something I asked Rich to do that he never did get around to, which is the order of action for construction of subdivisions. So right now we just have these two things here for scheduling. So let's take a couple minutes. Construction guys in particular, I think that's Dave and John primarily. Just look at this thing on scheduling. Is this enough? The subgrade and subbase of any street together with all drainage required for the street shall be completed in accordance with the Town of Thompson Road Ordinance and these regulations. And if applicable, any permit issued by the Inland Wetland Commission prior to approval of an application for certificate of occupancy for any structure on or served by such street. This is actually street scheduling. Pavement-based courses and surface courses and curbs shall be completed in accordance with the road ordinance and these regulations before application for town acceptance of any street. Something about this section does feel very incomplete to me, but I can't tell you what.
What, Joe, do you still have the 08?
Yeah, yep, I do. Scheduling. The subgrade and subbase of any street, together with all drainage required for the street, shall be completed in accordance with the Town of Thompson Road Ordinance and these regulations, and if applicable, any permit issued by the Inland Wetland Commission prior to approval of an application for certificate of occupancy for any structure on or served by such street. Pavement-based courses and surface courses and curbs shall be completed in accordance with the road ordinance and these regulations before application for town acceptance of any street.
So that's a word for word carryover.
Yeah.
So one thought I have is up in the existing streets section.
In this draft or in the original?
Yeah, in your, in the draft,
Okay, so let me go back up. And where am I going back to?
like the existing street sections. Right there, yeah. Right, yeah, we added, is anytime we had town road ordinance and these regulations, we added CT DOT standards. I don't know
Okay,
if that,
yep.
that makes sense here as well.
Sure, sure. Where am I here?
So do we want it to, so this is for certificate of occupancy. It doesn't really say anything about subgrade. Based on each street together, drainage required for the street shall be completed in accordance with the town. So do we want the director of public works signing? I know we had him sign off, but should we specify that in here that his approval is required for these?
This buzzing noise is driving me nuts.
I think it was implied that we did before.
What was that on, Dave, again?
Yeah, no, having the director of DPW sign off on road acceptance before we recommended road acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think
always
that's a, I
been the
think that's a
case.
good point, Dave. I think, you know, it when it became an issue, we reached out. But I think you're right. I think it should be in there.
Yeah, I would generally agree. I think I need to rephrase this a little bit to make it flow, but I think that's perfectly logical. I guess my question on it is, this doesn't really seem to be a discussion of scheduling of road construction other than the last two steps.
I agree. It is clunky at best. I don't even like the title. It should be like scheduling of road construction acceptance, or it's a bit puzzling.
Yeah, and that's why I asked Rich to actually give me an order of action that we could include either here or again in the appendices.
Does it even fit? Like, now what's next? K is easements.
K is easements, so that's where we'll pick up next week.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does it fit? Does it even fit where it is? Or should it be?
You mean K or this?
No, this here.
Well, I guess if it were actually scheduling of road construction, then it might fit here if easements are considered separate. I guess the other question is, do easements actually flow into the description of standards for road construction? But there are easements that might be required that aren't related to road construction, possibly. And again, this is where I would lean on those of you who have more specific construction experience. But I look at this and it doesn't really tell me anything except what you need to have completed to get your road accepted.
Exactly. That's what I'm having trouble with. It's just the title,
Well,
and I think where it
The
is.
the word scheduling, how about finalizing? The finalization of road construction, not scheduling.
I was just gonna kind of say that word scheduling is actually the wrong title for that, I mean, because you got everything. If you read the whole thing, you get everything. It says Town of Thompson ordinance and these regulations and everything. Scheduling is not a proper title for that section.
It's almost acceptance of road construction, or
That would
That's what I
something
was
to that effect. Yes.
finalizing acceptance of road construction.
I would say acceptance of road construction. Because now with that verbiage and everything, you're bringing all of those, that whole paragraph together, like the town of Thompson road ordinance and regulations, if it's applicable, and et cetera, certificate of occupancy and all of that. You're bringing that all together.
I will bet you dimes to donuts that changing that one word makes everybody feel better. Acceptance of road construction. A, the subgrade and subbase of any street, together with all drainage required for the street, shall be completed in accordance with the Town of Thompson Road Ordinance, CTDOT standards, and these regulations, and if applicable, any permit issued by the Inland Wetlands Commission prior to approval of an application for certificate of occupancy for any structure on or served by such street. B, pavement base courses and surface courses and curbs shall be completed in accordance with the road ordinance, CTDOT standards, and these regulations before application for town acceptance of any street.
Bingo.
What
Hit it.
sometimes
Did it.
That's it.
what are you trying to say, Alvin?
No, that's, I like it.
I
Accept
like
it.
it.
I'd
I
agree
love
with
it.
that.
Sometimes simple answers work.
But just
Okay,
capitalize road though,
Yeah.
please.
yes.
You're gonna put in somewhere for the DPW approval or something, right?
Yeah, and I've got that note here on the side. I have to reword it in order to make that not one giant messy sentence.
So
Yeah.
what you and all what you just did is you took that one paragraph, you made it into two different, like two sections, right? The way you read it,
Yeah,
because my whole thing is it's one whole paragraph, but with the way you did it, I was following you word for word, and I like the way you did it.
I tried to break up run-on paragraphs wherever I could.
You got my vote, kid.
Okay, so we're 3 minutes to 9. Good work. We got through an entire letter. I knew we were going to move slower once we got into this article compared to the early ones, but I still think we're keeping a good pace. I had enough responses in the last doodle to say that we will do next Wednesday again. That's better for Ray, it's better for Joe, it's better for me. And we still have just about the same number of people who said that they could be there.
Doesn't
So-
bother me.
Yeah, I know you're generally available, and I think Jane said she was generally available. So plan on next Wednesday, and I will do what I have done. I'll work on this over the next day or maybe two and get the rolling drafts updated. And good work, everybody.
Good night, all.
With that, I will move to item 3 and accept a motion for adjournment.
You got it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Why not?
Excellent. Meeting adjourned at 8:58 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night,
Night.
everybody.
Sarah, what time will you be in the office tomorrow?
I'm there by 8:30 generally.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.